And then there's this little gem. Okay, so now that Jimmy has received some pushback, he's backing down and at least saying that it's the quote-unquote system, not the cops themselves.
I'm just going off of recent history, the corruption we see coast to coast every time, and it's not a bad apple, it's the system, and that's what I'm saying.
I agree.
I'm saying that
I agree the system is
that's what I'm...
Now let's hear what Jimmy has to say in another video.
And again, it goes back to the mindset of the people who join the police. People who join the police like brutality. That's why they're cops.
Yeah, that's right.
So back in 2020, I made a video on how I initially got duped by the Dave Rubin grift, and how my reason for looking for new leftist content to begin with was due primarily to the way channels like the Young Turks recklessly blamed the police and or white people every time a person of color was shot. There was no attempt to fact-check allegations, no mention of what autopsies or gunshot residue reports showed, just the same narrative every time. What I didn't mention at the time was that Jimmy Dore was always the most irresponsible of the bunch, with Ben Menkowitz trying to be the voice of reason and Cenk Uygur splitting the difference between them. Sean Fitzgerald, a.k.a. Actual Justice Warrior, recently went after the Young Turks for this very sort of coverage, and highlighted Jimmy Dore's irresponsible calls for violence and how Gavin Long, a man who eventually shot police officers, clearly watched Jimmy and was possibly inspired by him. Here is a segment from Destiny's channel, but before we get to that, don't forget to click like and subscribe to this channel.
That was the result of putting out all that anti-cop propaganda, of all of that being absorbed by Gavin Long, of the lies of the Young Turks, misreporting of these stories, mishandling of these stories, giving people the misperception that it was a significant number of unarmed black people who were perfectly innocent just being killed by the cops due to evil white racism, and that is the result of it. That's what Gavin Long did. That's the legacy of the Young Turks when it comes to inspiring violent acts of terror.
I will open my trunk and get a tire iron and then call my dad.
I'm not sitting and watching. That I don't know what I would do. And he says he'll get the tire iron. I don't know what I'll do, but I'm not sitting and watching. That's what I'm not doing. Everything else is off of that.
Again, it's all there. It's all on screen. You can hear what he's saying. He thinks that the police are out there hunting black people. Where do you think he got that idea? The answer, again, on screen. The Young Turks are reflected in his glasses as he's saying this, as he's talking about how he's going to protect that woman, how he's going to defend black people, how it's different when it's black people. All of this nonsense that's fed to him directly by people at the Young Turks.
This brings me to another instance of Jimmy doing this, and I've been meaning to make a video about it for some time. Back in 2015, a Maryland police officer was caught on camera pointing a gun at a man's head. As a result, he was fired and sentenced to 5 years in prison after being found guilty of first and second degree assault. TYT's coverage on this, which we're about to watch, was recorded after the officer was convicted and placed on leave, but before he was fired and sentenced to 5 years in prison. This is important because you're going to hear Jimmy Dore's irresponsible take on this matter, where he claims that police officers are trained to escalate, and he doesn't believe that this officer will even be fired. Ben Menkowitz tries to talk some sense into Jimmy, but Jimmy isn't having it. Of course, this guy was not only fired, but was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Did Jimmy Dore ever issue any mea culpa? If he did, I can't find it, but given Jimmy's track record of being proven wrong and simply ignoring this and continuing his irresponsible and factually incorrect tirades, we can conclude that he never did.
Cell phone video of a police officer putting his gun to the head of a man that he was pulling over has, against all odds, considering that this is the United States, actually resulted in a criminal conviction of the police officer.
No.
It's amazing.
What,
First,
he must have did something else.
Maybe.
Did he
I don't
have a joint
know.
in his pocket when he did it?
Maybe. Here's the actual
name
video.
Is Santiago.
Here's the video of him
Maybe
doing
order the court red.
Video this. Get back over there. Video this. He put it. Get back in the car. Get back in the car. Go ahead. I dare you to fucking fight me, son.
But they're not really trained that way. But they're certainly not trained to put a gun to a guy's head.
No. I agree with both of you guys. You shouldn't escalate. You should, figure out a way to bring things down. Right, but what I'm saying is that
their idea of that taking charge is that takes control of a difficult situation and de-escalates it. They're not literally saying to escalate the situation.
Yes, they're not literally saying
what every cop in every situation fears is an escalation.
And you would look at the results and you would realize that this isn't producing a good outcome if you put any value on the fact.
Backwards, you go to the next step. So if you don't have immediate control of a situation, you don't de-escalate it, you escalate it. So they don't say escalate it, but they say go to the next step. And by the way, be wary, this guy's going to shoot you. So at every moment, be paranoid he's going to kill you, so you be ready to kill him first, which is you're already taking whatever. This situation, the guy got pulled over, he doesn't even have a fucking gun on him. The guy's got his, so they're always taught to go to that, they're never taught to back off. They're not taught to de-escalate.
So, two more facts about this.
Sure.
Without the video, they would have taken any action? Of course not.
And so that goes to my point that I've been making for a couple of years now, that you go, oh, well, this guy's just obviously out of control. All the cops don't do that. All the cops aren't maniacs. He's a bad apple. He still is. They're not even, he's convicted. They have the videotape. We still might have him hang around. They're all fucked up. Okay, his boss is fucked up. The chief is fucked up. They're all fucked up. Why isn't that guy fired right now? You're telling me that they're not fucked up, Ben? You see what happened?
Jimmy, you say semantics. It is semantics, but the language matters. The language matters, and your language is inflammatory, and it's wrong, and it sounds silly, even though you're right on almost every point. They don't escalate. They're not taught to escalate, so it's important that we use the right language. They're literally not taught escalate the situation. Find me one cop. You won't do it. You won't find it because it doesn't exist. Like what John just read doesn't mean that the cop's boss probably can't wait to fire him. But he's got a police union to deal with, and there's a process they have to go through, and he's not able to fire him yet.
So you're giving a benefit of the doubt to this guy.
I'm not giving a benefit.
Nothing about.
I know more than you because I listen to the fucking story.
You know nothing about.
You know less. What do you know that I don't know? What do you know that I don't know?
I that like this and then proven right many, many times about this stuff on the show. So I can't wait to replay this tape again.
I can't wait for it either. So when that guy's fired, will you say you're wrong?
So I don't know. What? No, I'm not going to say I'm wrong. That's a fucked up culture. We have a fucked up police culture.
I agree.
From coast to coast, so I don't even know what you're arguing with me about.
I'm arguing about the sort of recklessness of the language that ends up undermining the very movement that you were trying to support.
So let me try to summarize here.
If this guy doesn't get fired, that's an outrage. That's true.
Yeah.
But we don't know that they're trying to save his job. That's all. Like he just said that the chief has to deal with this circumstance, and if they don't fire him, you're 100% right. But we have no evidence that they're not going to fire him, or that they're not going to fire him. That we have no evidence what happens to this guy down the road. He just got convicted this week. He was convicted. That's a good thing.
And then there's this little gem. Okay, so now that Jimmy has received some pushback, he's backing down and at least saying that it's the quote-unquote system, not the cops themselves.
I'm just going off of recent history, the corruption we see coast to coast every time, and it's not a bad apple. It's the system, and that's what I'm saying.
I agree.
I'm saying that
I agree the system
that's
is
what I'm.
Now let's hear what Jimmy has to say in another video.
And again, it goes back to the mindset of the people who join the police. People who join the police like brutality. That's why they're cops.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is the problem with that segment of the left. To give credit where it's due, it does appear that the Young Turks is a bit more responsible these days. And Jimmy Dore is functionally on the right these days. So bashing law and order isn't in his wheelhouse anymore, well, except when he's defending Trump, of course. Nevertheless, this sloppiness with the truth has made the left look bad time and time again. Well, that's it for now.